Discover the cinematic universe on our YouTube channel, where our love for movies has no bounds. Join us as we share our thoughts, hold discussions, and marvel at the glories of storytelling on the big screen. Today, we'll see a video review of the 4th episode of The Boys, Homelander's Bloody Homecoming. The 3-episode start of The Boys Season 4 suggests that many characters are reaching their breaking point. Ryan, Cameron Crovetti, has starting to discover the truth about his birth father, Homelander, Anthony Starr, and is becoming increasingly disillusioned with Vought's preference for corporate BS above truly healing people. Homelander has also discovered a new ally in the world's most intelligent person, Sister Sage, who has taken over as CEO of Vought from a distressed Ashley. After being called out by his own family, A-Train, Jesse T. Usher, is seeking for a way out of the Seven and has started assisting Mother's Milk, Laz Alonso, and Huey. Meanwhile, with his father in a vegetative state, Huey has had an emotional reconciliation with his estranged mother, Daphne, Rosemary DeWitt. Frenchie is going through an existential crisis when his previous boyfriend, Colin, reappears in his life, leaving the Frenchman plagued by the idea that he murdered Colin's family. Annie is embroiled in an all-out media fight with the alt-right Soup Firecracker, whom she used to abuse as a teenager. Finally, with little time remaining, Billy Butcher, Carl Urban, is divided between becoming a proper father figure to Ryan and assisting his old battle ally Kessler, Jeffrey D. Morgan, in their war against the Soups. The 4th episode of Season 4, Wisdom of the Ages, is not just one of the series' darkest, but also one of its greatest. The episode begins with Homelander arriving at home, which most people would describe as a dirty, underground research facility. In other words, it's hardly the type of setting that exudes happy childhood. Homelander, acting suspiciously cheerful, presents the staff with a Fudgy the Whale cake and mentions that Murray Furrow, one of the scientists who gathered his feces samples as a child, is now the assistant director. He then insists that Marty bring in Barbara, Nancy Lenehan, the head director. Butcher, in the midst of another episode, collapses in the shower and is awakened by the imaginary version of his late wife Becca, Chantel Van Santen, who encourages him to get up, saying, "The world doesn't end just because your shitty life does." He's not the only character approaching death's door, as Huey and Daphne are informed by a doctor that Hugh Sr. is now brain dead and only has a few days left if they don't choose to euthanize him. This moment is interrupted by a broadcast advertising the Vought-run fan event, V52, a Tech Night-hosted true crime series covering the events that transpired in the Gen V finale, and lastly, a Vought news broadcast labeling President-elect Robert Singer, Jim Beaver, deranged fascist hellbent on ruling the country. Singer is shown to be watching the broadcast and is put off by what he's watching. He is interrupted by Annie, who gives him notes on the soup control bill, and lays out the harsh truth. There is no way he'll be able to get the bill past Congress with his poor PR department. Annie promises that she'll lead protests across the country as Starlight, complete with the costume. For Congress to be forced to take action, after waking up next to one another, Colin opens up to Frenchie about the night of his family's murder, still completely oblivious to the fact about who is truly responsible. He reveals that he was in the house while the murders were taking place, and only saw the perpetrator's scars, which leads Frenchie to cover himself up under the bedsheets. Sister Sage has orchestrated a plan that involves Firecracker's new series titled The Truth Bomb to be filmed right outside the Starlight house. The Deep attempts to flirt with Sage, but she rejects him, much to his surprise, calling him repulsive. As Annie evacuates the Starlight house, Mother's Milk informs her that he has allowed Butcher back onto the team, much to her annoyance. Back at the underground facility, Homelander forces Frank, Mark Cowling, one of the scientists, to get inside the facility's massive oven. He claims that when he was a child screaming and writhing in pain inside the oven, Frank merely lounged around and played wastepaper basketball. The scientists watch in horror as Frank burns alive while Homelander gleefully throws wadded-up paper into the wastebasket. Huey and Kimiko, Karen Fukuhara, arrive at a dockyard, which, unbeknownst to the latter, is for a meeting with A-Train. Huey asks the reluctant speedster to steal a vial of Compound V from Homelander's penthouse. Having saved Huey from Homelander in the previous episode, A-Train initially refuses until Huey reveals that it's for his father, and that he wouldn't even be in this situation if it weren't for the speedster killing Robin at the very beginning of the series. Just as A-Train leaves, Kimiko and Huey are ambushed by the remaining members of the Shining Light terrorist group, as Firecracker and the Deep sing a duet on Truth Bomb. Butcher and are sneaking backstage, where the former asks the latter to save Ryan. They approach Firecracker as she's entering her trailer, where Butcher begins to blackmail her. Butcher threatens to leak a tweet on social media that reveals that when the Southern Soup was 28 and working as a counselor at a Bible camp, she slept with a 15-year-old boy. Unfazed and believing that she has nothing to lose, Firecracker posts the tweet herself and immediately walks back on stage to confess her sins on the live broadcast. As Annie's former youth pastor Ezekiel, Sean Benson, stands next to her, Firecracker claims that this affair is what led her to become a born-again Christian. She then proceeds to tell the story of Annie's first save, where she accidentally blinded a mother of 3 with her powers. A-Train sneaks around Homelander's penthouse, taking a vial of Compound V, but is caught by Ashley, who has also been sneaking around, having vandalized his bathroom. The two agree not to tell on one another. Back at the underground facility, Homelander approaches Marty, and recalls to him a story from his childhood, where the scientist caught Homelander masturbating and proceeded to laugh at him, giving him the nickname Squirt. Pleading for his life, Marty meekly apologizes, only for Homelander to force him to masturbate in front of him and the entire staff. Homelander ruthlessly mocks Marty and laughs hysterically when he is unable to get himself erect. The petrified Marty gives up and in retaliation, Homelander lasers off his genitals. Barbara soon makes her entrance, ordering Homelander to put the writhing Marty out of his misery. Huey and Kimiko fight their way out of a warehouse that is now overrun by members of Shining Light. Kimiko spares one of the members, who reminds her that she was forced to fight as a child and that she'll never stop hating her. Firecracker discloses live on television that Annie had an abortion 6 months ago, after discovering she was pregnant with Huey's kid during a regular checkup. Enraged, Annie storms out of the Starlight house and begins beating up Firecracker live on stage before being stopped by who reminds her that she is being broadcast. A video of the beating then goes online, portraying Annie in an even worse light. Frenchie and Butcher are caught by Ezekiel while breaking into Firecracker's trailer, who then begins attacking them. Butcher grabs hold of a fire extinguisher while Ezekiel is using his stretchy powers, and freezes his arm, shattering it. Butcher blacks out as Ezekiel is strangling him and wakes up to find the trailer a bloodied mess, with Ezekiel torn to shreds, presumably by him. At the facility, Barbara pulls Homelander aside, where she tells him that he could have easily broken out any time he would have liked, but the only reason he didn't was because he was afraid that she would be disappointed in him. She also reveals that Vought hired a top psychologist to make Homelander more obedient, instilling his human need for love. Homelander rejects his humanity, claiming that he is more than human. Colin begins treating Frenchie's wounds from his fight with Ezekiel, but Frenchie angrily pushes him away, finally confessing that he's the one responsible for killing Colin's family. In an act of rage, Colin nearly strangles Frenchie to death, before running away and threatening his life if he ever comes near him again. The Deep confronts Sage over her rejection earlier in the day before she stops him, asking him for a favor. Sage tells the Deep that she can temporarily deactivate her powers by giving herself a lobotomy, then asks the Deep to do it for her, which he does, and the two then begin having sex. Back at the boys' office, a devastated Huey tries and fails to comfort Annie, where she reveals that she just wasn't ready to be a parent. Annie then receives a call from Singer, who tells her that the Soup Control Act would have passed with flying colors, but now won't be able to get past Congress because of her abortion and the video of her beating Firecracker. Annie apologizes, but Singer won't hear any of it and cuts all ties with her. Later, Huey meets up with A-Train in an alleyway, where he is given the vial of Compound V. The two finally come to a truce and shake hands. Right after A-Train runs away, Butcher walks out of the shadows, trying to convince Huey not to use V on his father. He then reveals that he injected himself with V from Frenchie's desk in an attempt to cure himself. Not only did he not get powers, but it also worsened his terminal illness. Huey brings the vial to the hospital where he contemplates using it on his father, who, according to the doctors, should go at any time now. Huey leaves the room, only to come back to see that Daphne injected his father with compound V. The mother and son watch as Hugh Sr.'s body convulses and his eyes snap open. The episode ends with Homelander leaving the underground facility drenched in blood and guts, having killed everyone except Barbara, who is left shaking and locked in a cell, while the boys usually has no problems jumping straight into the shock and grossness. Season 4 has felt like more of a steady build, and Wisdom of the Ages is where it feels like the season is truly beginning to flourish. Anthony Starr has never failed to capture Homelander's mad depravity, but his performance in this episode is without a doubt his finest hour as the character. Starr alone is able to create a completely tense atmosphere, leaving us absolutely petrified about the carnage he's capable of and will inevitably inflict upon his latest victims. The final shot of the episode, showing the bloodied Homelander smirking to himself in the elevator, tells us just about everything you need to know about where this character is headed. Starr isn't the only standout in this episode, though. Moriarty may now let go even more, as Annie has found her match in Curry's firecracker. Annie, like Huey, has always been at the heart of the boys, and Moriarty convincingly displays her character's vulnerability, leading in a tragic conclusion to the episode. It's also worth noting the famous lobotomy scene. While there isn't any blood on show, it's still one of the most awful scenes the series has ever pulled off, and most viewers will never want to see it again. That's the end. Unlock the secrets of storytelling through our video, our YouTube channel's guide to the art of cinema. Join us as we delve into the narratives, the characters, and the sheer enchantment that movies bring to our lives. From script to screen, we've got it all covered. Join us as we analyze, critique, and appreciate the magic of movies. Subscribe to our channel for more videos.